Hola amigos! Soy MrRazmuss, and this is Cocinando con Razmuss. What's up everybody, MrRazmuss. This is Cooking with Razmuss. Spanish themed today. We're doing a Mexican style braised beef recipe. It's gonna simmer it's gonna bake and braise for 2 to 3 hours. Nice Sunday kind of roast. So I'll catch you in a second. Alright, so here are the ingredients that we're starting off with. This is the roast. The recipe called for a chuck roast, and unfortunately at my local butcher shop the chuck roast was way too much meat. It was too big, they didn't want to cut it for me, and too big and too expensive. This is a sirloin tip roast. It's smaller. It's about probably about 400 grams less than the chuck roast was, so it's just a beef roast, a little bit more high quality, but again, it's not as much. I didn't need a whole humongous 1300 kilograms or 1300 grams of beef roast. So you got that. Can of diced tomatoes. I went for the no salt added unico because I'm going to be seasoning the beef with salt, and you can always add salt, you can never take it away. 5 small jalapeno peppers. The recipe calls for poblano and serrano. My local stores only had jalapeno. Garlic, yellow onion, oregano. Again, recipe calls for fresh, but the stores just didn't have any, and it's not that time of year that fresh oregano is growing everywhere, so you can use the dried powdered stuff. And to round everything out, we have a beautiful bottle of Spanish wine. Yep, so it's going to be used in the cooking and enjoyed by the chef. You know what I'm talking about. So let's get this thing going. Mince the garlic, chop the onion, and we're going to roast the peppers under a broiler on the oven. So my peppers are in there roasting under a high broil, and they've been popping away and they smell a little bit burnt, but that's okay. They should be turning black. We're going to scrape all the burnt stuff off. Once they're roasted, I think they just need a little bit longer. So if you're roasting your peppers and you hear them popping in the oven, don't worry. They're probably just fine. Anyway, we'll see what happens in a few minutes here. So the peppers are under a wet kitchen towel on a plate. You can just see the steam. Let them steam for a little while. This is going to cook them. It's going to steam the skin and just get everything going a little bit more. So as you can see, the peppers are roasted and a little bit charred. I've taken the stem off. Now what you're going to want to do is scrape these little bits of charred skin off. Going to need a little bit more elbow grease than that, but yeah, scrape the bits of charred skin off or cut them off. Slice the peppers in half. Remove the seeds, unless you want to make it a spicy braised beef. Remove the seeds, save them for later, and chop your peppers. Set them aside for later. We're going to add them after we've braised or seared our beef a little bit. Alright, so there you got the skin at the top, the seeds, and the chopped roasted peppers. Minced garlic and your chopped onion. And I should mention that if you've got a gas stove, gas range, you can just turn one of the burners on high and roast the peppers over the flame. And while you were doing that, you should have your oven preheating to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh yes. Now let's check out the meat. The next step is to season this with salt and pepper and heat our Dutch oven. But we don't have a Dutch oven. No, let me check this recipe really quick. Dutch oven. We do not have a Dutch oven. No, a lot of people probably won't have a Dutch oven, so what I'm going to use is this infamous saucepan that I've used so many times before, or skillet. The beef will fit. Yep, the beef will fit. So, hang on, this is the pan that the peppers were roasting on. Thank goodness it cools down quickly. I'm just going to set it here just for the moment. I will clean everything up in due course. Heat your olive oil. Not too much, just put some olive oil in the bottom. Splash a little bit of your oil in. Heat it up to a medium-high heat. And then we're going to sear the beef in that. Now the best part about cooking with wine, white or red, is that you get to taste it. to make sure that it hasn't gone bad and that it's properly suited for the dish you're about to create. Oh yeah, that'll do. That'll do just fine. Now we get to season the beef, and I had to break out both salt shakers because I don't know, might be running a bit low. I don't really want to skimp too much. So I'm going to just salt it all right now. And then add the pepper on later. Because the pepper is a two-hand job, buddy. Oh yeah, I think I'll have more than enough salt. Okay, yeah, that's looking good. That's enough salt, I'd say. Now we need the black pepper. Okay, the oil's nice and hot, and get to use the old pitchfork again. This is another time it comes in handy. Big pieces of meat. Now listen to the sear. Oh yeah. You hear that? That's a good sound. That's what we all came here for. So we're going to go 2 minutes aside. All around, not just top and bottom, but we're going to go all around. All four sides. You might wonder, why are you going to do this if you're sticking it in the oven? Well, this is going to brown the meat. Okay, it's going to get that caramelization happening that you can't really get from an oven unless you're broiling. But since we're slow cooking it, you've got to get that nice brown, and it's going to kind of seal in all the juices. So that's a very important step. Don't neglect this step. I've got to do a progress report because this thing is so beautiful. Look at that brown. Those are the two sides that have been seared. The first side, the second side, searing the third side. But look at that. Beautiful color, beautiful caramelization and browning, which develops flavor. That's the most important part. You're browning the meat to develop flavor. And look at that. See all that stuff in the pan? That burnt stuff? Well, you might think it looks burnt, but that is also going to develop flavor. I'm going to leave that in. I'll show you. Oh yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful piece of meat. So we're going to set it aside. It's all been, browned. Look at that. Looks nice. That's what's in the pan. So let's walk over here. Get our onions. Okay, now we add the onion. Don't want to get any of that garlic in there. That stuff's got to go in just a little bit later. The recipe calls for julienne onion. And julienne onions are like string cut, right? You think of julienne fries or julienne carrot, string cut. But you know what? I thought I don't need to do string cut. If you don't feel like doing string cut, just do a big rough chop like this. You know, nice 3/4 inch squares of onion. So what we're going to do now is let this cook for about 10 minutes until it's caramelized. Yes, folks, caramelized. So you want the onions to get brown, but not black. Just brown. And what I'm doing here is just stirring everything up, getting all the onions coated in the residual oil and residual juices left over by the beef. And I'm also separating them because, quite often the layers will remain stuck together and you won't get a nice even cooking experience for your onions. Nothing like the smell of cooking onions. I'm a big fan of the smell of cooked onions and, of course, garlic. So you can see that stain in the middle of the pan. That's important. We're going to deglaze the pan with the red wine, and that stuff's going to come right off and really enhance the flavors. As you can see, the onions are already turning a little bit brown. They're absorbing a little bit of that beef situation. So check back in with these are caramelized. Onions are beautifully caramelized. Look at that. So we're going to add the roasted peppers and the garlic. We're just going to cook this for a minute. Don't want to cook it for too long. If that garlic burns, the flavor profile changes. We just want to get it aromatic. So let's add that in. Cook it for a minute. Like a so. Oh yeah. Interesting mix there. peppers and onions and garlic. Get it all mixed together. Kind of keep it moving so nothing gets too burny, you know what I'm saying? You don't want that garlic to feel the burn, you just want to get it a little bit toasty. Already I can see it's starting to get a little bit crispy. Some of those smaller pieces, man, if you mince your garlic, you got some of those small bits, and they don't last too long. They will quickly turn to flavorless pieces of carbon if you're not careful. Let's just keep that going for a couple more seconds. Let's get a scent profile of this. Oh, the aroma. The aroma is absolutely awesome. Heavy garlic, a little bit of pepper. Now, I removed the seeds from the peppers, but of course there are the stragglers that get left behind. So, the recipe calls for half a cup of wine, but this is where the eyeball technique comes in handy. We're going to deglaze the pan. Get ready for this. Just like that. Now scrape it. Scrape it. Get all those brown bits off. You want all those brown bits to come off the bottom. Yeah, just like that. Now we're going to let this reduce by about half. Wine and onions. Red wine and onions always has such a unique smell when you combine the two. Kind of reminds me of French cooking. But, quick tidbit of information, the Roman centurions, aka the Roman soldiers, when they were, no matter where they were, they would usually cook with red wine. Doesn't that look great? So the wine has pretty much reduced by half. Just going to let it simmer away just a little bit more. Concentrate those flavors. Oh man, does that not look awesome? This is the base for our braised beef. The smell is awesome. Roll those bits off the spoon. Now we will add, this is the can of diced tomatoes. I think the can I got is maybe a little bit too big for our purposes, but in she goes. The recipe called for, I think it was 15 ounces, and I believe that I got double that. I think a little bit more of the solids can go in here. Tomatoes are real good for you. Don't skimp on those. So that looks good. In fact, I'm going to call that done. And what we need to do now is bring it to a boil. So it's not the most complicated recipe in the world. It's my first time trying it. And I'm just going to mention Judd from the Bait and Sketch Show is the person who inspired me to make this recipe. He is always about, he's always talking about kind of international foods and like ethnic foods and food culture, because he interacts with a lot of people from around the world. And of course, what's one thing that binds all humans together is food and the differences between our foods and the unique flavor experiences across the world. So Judd was saying that he has a Mexican friend, and she was telling him about cachetadas. I think it's what it's called in Spanish, cachetadas, or slap in the face tacos or burritos. So this, it's basically a shredded roasted beef base for a taco. So I got the inspiration to make braised beef in a Mexican style. I guess I didn't really explain that too well. Hopefully the end result is going to be shreddable, and I'm going to eat it in some tortillas with, I might make a guacamole, or maybe it's just a salsa fresca, a fresh salsa. But thank you, Judd, for inspiring me. This recipe's smelling great. Simple, but I can tell it's going to be absolutely delicious. So stay tuned. Okay, that looks like it's bubbling and boiling to me. So now we're going to add the beef back. You kind of wonder, is it going to fit? So let's stab that beef. And there it is. Let's see if we can sink it in there. I think if it's sideways, we might have a better time. I don't know. Let's see if we can cover it with any of these veg. Oh yeah, look at that. Let me just see. I think maybe we got to do it this way. End up. Let's get some of those veg on top. Just like so. A lot of liquid. I do hope that quite a bit of this evaporates. But she's going in the oven for 2 hours. In fact, 2 to 3 hours. That is a clean finger, don't worry. Actually, I'm going to give that finger a lick. Good flavor. So, let's cover it. And that's going to go in the oven at 325. We're going to roast that for 2 to 3 hours. Alright, it's been roasting for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Oh, look at that. Oh my god. Now that looks tasty. Let's get a little bit of a close-up shot. I mean, it's a whole lot of tomatoes, onions, and peppers. Eh? It's looking like this thing is drenched in salsa. Look at this beautifully stewed mixture. Now, the recipe, the sauce was a whole lot darker. It was like dark purple or black. So, ow! Shit! Note to self, do not grab the hot handle after the pots come out of a 325 degree oven. That was not a smart move. It burnt my hand. It's not the first time I did that. When I was really young, I grabbed a steaming hot skillet of prawns or something like that. Ow, so I know what that's all about. Let's get the cold water happening. Yeah, that didn't feel good at all. So I'm gonna be very wary of this pot now. Burnt my hand pretty good. It burns! So I'm gonna extract the beef, put it into a kind of serving dish. God damn, my hand is still burning. Feels like my hand just did the ghost pepper challenge. Oh, god damn. Yeah, that was not the smartest thing I've ever done. By the way, if you're ever handling food like that, you want to make sure you got clean hands. Alright, let's see if this is going to shred apart. Oh, yeah. Look at the shred. Look at the shred, man. That's how you know you've done a good job, is when the shred is real. You just want to take 2 forks and shred the shit out of this beef. All of this beef needs to be shredded ASAP, Rocky. Oh yeah, look at that. Let me taste test one of these little shreds of beef, just by itself. Standard roast beef flavor. Nothing that sets it apart too much from a standard roasted shredded beef, but I have a feeling that when I mix, say I've got a little bit of the veggie stuff in here, what I'm going to do is mix some of the veggie stuff with all the shredded meat. So there's all the beef after it's been shredded. Quite an intense process. You got to really dig into it and give her. And here's the veg and the sauce kind of deal. And what I've been doing is just mashing it a bit with a potato masher. Hang on, let me put this. Let me get my head together here. It's dry. It's roast beef, you know? I'm just going to start adding in some of the veg mix. And this is probably where a lot of the flavor is going to be at. It looks like a salsa. Looks like a really nice salsa for some kind of a... It almost looks like a pasta sauce. So I'm going to start with that. And then we'll just combine it with our beef. The does not look anything like what the recipe resulted in. And that's often how it is, right? You know, who's really going to give away their ultimate secret family recipe? They'll just give you the meat and potatoes of it. No pun intended. Anyway, this doesn't look anything like the recipe, like the end result of the recipe that I followed, but this looks really, really good. Smells delicious. I think it's going to make for some great burritos. Now comes the taste test portion. Just grab a little forkful. Oh yeah. Mmm. Oh. That's really special. A little bit of kick from the jalapenos. Not that much, but you know it's there. And this is good. I'll show you when I get a burrito fixed up. A little bit of cheese, tortilla, and you got yourself a good dinner.